Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called HOA Rules. I bought my first house in 1999 and I wanted DirecTV. I put up a satellite dish, which happened to be behind a private fence. I also knew the FCC ruling that HOAs could prevent you from putting up a dish due to some malfeasance with home builders, who would make shady deals with cable companies to force homeowners to go with a specific company. I figured I wouldn't have any issues, since it was behind a fence anyway. I got a knock at my door the next day, and it was my neighbor from across the cul-de-sac, telling me she's on the board of the HOA. Your dish is in violation and must be removed. This was my first encounter with her. I politely explained the law as I knew it and told her to have a nice day. We didn't speak again, and she ended up moving out soon. Well, it turns out she didn't move out and was just renting to some other lady I never spoke to. And the HOA lady moved back in a year later. There was an easement behind my house which was properly mowed when I moved in. I would hit golf balls down there with my wedge, and my neighbor was into archery and used it as his range. By the second summer I lived there, it was overgrown and an eyesore. I couldn't even see the creek just behind my house anymore. One weekend I borrowed my dad's utility trailer and I spent 3 days clearing out our little section behind the houses, hauling all of the debris away. Probably 2 trips a day. My arms were covered in cuts from briars. And apparently I was also dealing with sumac, poison ivy or some other stuff. By Monday I was having an allergic reaction, so badly that I went to the doc to get a steroid shot. Laid up in the house all day and I get a knock at the door. It's the neighbor woman again. Apparently, there's a rule that you cannot store a trailer in the driveway for more than 3 days. And this was day 4. I needed to remove it by the end of the day or face a $500 fine. She handed me a paper listing the rule, and I considered just paying the fine. But instead, I angrily drove an hour each way to return my dad's trailer after spending half the day already waiting in a hospital lobby. I got home after dark. What struck me as odd was there was a list of things you couldn't store in your driveway. Personal watercraft, boats, trailers, etc. The odd part was that motorcycle was listed on there. I don't ride one myself, but I thought it was a totally reasonable thing to keep in a driveway. After I finished all of this work, this woman would routinely walk through my yard without asking. But since she was taking her grandkid to play in the creek, I never said anything, even though it bothered me she never asked. A year or so later, I wanted to sell the house and move into something bigger. I had talked to a realtor already, and I was getting things tidied up to have the house shown. As I was cleaning out a drawer, I noticed the paper the HOA lady had given me, and I remembered the part about motorcycles being listed. You see, the HOA lady had started dating an older gentleman, and he had moved in with her. Turns out he rode a Harley, which was always parked in her driveway. She was home, so I walked over there and politely informed her about the violation. The next day, the motorcycle was parked on her back porch, the one she bragged about to everyone who would listen, so she could tell them how much it cost. I laughed to myself, but then I remembered the part about it needing to be behind a fence. Another knock at the door, and within a few days, a fence company was building a 6-foot privacy fence that completely hid her fancy new deck. My realtor had been on my case for at least a week about needing to put up a for sale sign, so as soon as the fence was finished, I told her it was okay. I sold the house quickly and moved out at the end of the month. The fence was completely hideous and looked out of place because of the way her lot was shaped. The next story is called No Compensation. My brother-in-law grows avocados in California. Several years ago, a portion of his ranch was ravaged by a wildfire, or so he thought at first. When the smoke cleared, it became obvious that the fire was caused by an electrical line that was blown over by strong winds and had landed on his fence, catching it on fire. Since he had been planning on diversifying his crops anyway, he decided he'd simply replace his fence, replant and move on. To that end, he called up the electric company that owned the downed line and asked them for about $10,000 in compensation to replace the fence that had been destroyed by the electrical line. They denied any and all culpability in the matter and told him that he should sue them if he didn't like it. What the electric company didn't realize was that my sister, his wife, works full-time as a corporate attorney for one of the largest utilities in California. She is defending them against cases just like this one. At first, she was concerned that this utility was a subsidiary of her employer, in which case there would be a massive conflict of interest. Apparently, legal departments frown on their employees when their husband is suing them. Go figure. Thankfully, after some investigation, she realized that the utility in question was completely independent of her employer, and at that point, the gloves were off. My sister didn't represent her husband, because she's typically on the other side of these cases. But she did advise him on everything he needed to bring to court to win his case. And she helped him find a very reputable lawyer with a solid record of winning cases like these. Not knowing what they were up against, the utility persisted in refusing to negotiate, hoping that by forcing my brother-in-law to trial he would simply give up and go away. Spurred on by my sister's insistence that he had a solid case, he called their bluff and went to trial. As it turns out, California takes agricultural damage very seriously, and the court conducted its own independent investigation. It estimated the total damages at around $335,000, which is over 33 times as much as my brother-in-law had asked for initially. Furthermore, there's a law in California that awards triple damages in cases where agriculture is impacted. So the utility that had been unwilling to negotiate over $10,000 was now on the hook for over $1 million in damages. When all was said and done, my brother-in-law confided to me that he would have gladly settled for the $10,000 in arbitration, and that it would probably have taken him over a decade to even sell $1 million worth of crops. The utility had to have its day in court though. The last story is called "Want to Talk to My Manager?" This happened about 13 years ago. I was a field service engineer for a national retail chain. Basically, I was the IT guy who drove around in a company vehicle, servicing the computer networks in the stores. The way the company was organized, there were corporate employees and then there were retail employees. Being a corporate employee, I received corporate stock as a small part of my salary, and my starting pay was 3 times the rate of any store manager. Because I was always putting out fires, I often found myself in the awkward position of dealing with store managers. They honestly thought that they were the store owners and that I was just the hired help. This was truly ironic, as I actually did own a very small piece of the corporation, whereas the average store manager did not. One day I got orders to replace a server in a store not too far from my house. I worked out of my house but kept parts in the truck and also the back room of another store nearby. So I show up to the store where the server needed to be replaced. It was my second stop of 3 scheduled that day. I walk into the store wearing my very obvious corporate uniform and name tag with logo. The retail manager instantly demands to know what the frick I'm doing in her store. I get this all the time, nothing new. I calmly explain that my boss wants me to upgrade one of the store servers, hardware replacement, and I even show her where it is that I will be working. I explain that it will take about an hour and that the registers might go offline for about 5 minutes. She isn't happy, but she reluctantly allows me into the room where the server is and I start working. When I'm just about done, the registers go down as I'm switching them to the new server, which is not fully hooked up yet. It was at this point that I realize I have forgotten to bring in a couple of cables that I need to finish hooking the new server into the store network. So I run out to the truck to get the required cables. I'm gone for about 2 minutes. When I get back, the store manager is sitting at the table in front of the server, and she got food spread out all over the table. The server is under the table. I tell the store manager I need to finish hooking up the server, gesturing under the table. The store manager tells me I have to come back in an hour, after her lunch break. I am shocked into total silence. Then a cashier bursts into the room, panicked that the registers aren't working, and the checkout lines are getting backed up. I explain to the manager that I have to fix the server now, or the registers will not work. The manager tells me I should have thought of that before I started working in her lunch break area. I calmly tell the store manager that she will have to take a break later or find somewhere else to eat her lunch. She tells me I'm rude and incompetent and demands to speak to my manager immediately. I call up my manager using my corporate issued iPhone and quickly explain the situation, and then walk into the server room to hand the iPhone to the store manager. While she's on the phone with my manager, I head out to the front of the store to explain and apologize that the registers are going to be down for a few more minutes. I can't hear exactly what the store manager is telling my manager, but I can tell that it's a heated conversation, and I clearly hear the word fired mentioned a few times. It's clear that the retail manager wants me to be fired for daring to try to interrupt her lunch break. Unfortunately for her, my direct supervisor was about 5 to 6 levels above the retail district manager. So the store manager was complaining loudly about interrupting my work to the manager of her manager's manager. A few minutes later, the store manager walks out of the room, awkwardly balancing bits and pieces of her lunch spread. I immediately go back to work, getting the new server up and running and rebooting the registers so that they will sync on the new server and cashiers can get back to work. Everyone is happy now, except the store manager, because her lunch break was ruined. The main part of my task is done now, but it takes me about 15 minutes to clean up my mess and reorganize my truck to get ready for my next stop, which will be about a 1-hour drive from my current location. As I'm doing this, I see the retail district manager. I've met her before, going into the store. She walks back out of the store with the former store manager, who is carrying a box of her personal items. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.